And we're speaking about this credit, making it easier for startups to not worry about funding and whatnot. Can you run us through how that whole credit situation works? And how do founders kind of get access to this credit?
Great. Let's do that. So the credits, there are different perks to the credits within AWS, right? So we have what we call the Activate Program, which allows businesses to access credit or startups to access credit from as little as $1,000 up to $100,000. And this is very, very easy to access. That is what we do for startups. We help you with the admin. We help you with the logistics. All you do is to comply with the steps. And one of the steps is make sure that your company is registered and you have a domain email as well that is synonymous, that aligns with your company registration name as well. Once you have that, you ping us, or WhatsApp us, or email us, and then
Hi, welcome to the show. If this is your first time here or you are a returning listener or viewer and you haven't done so yet, hit the like and subscribe button down below. Be much appreciated. And of course, if you very intrigued with what's happening in the startup scene, definitely hit that like and subscribe button down below, and hope you look forward to the show. Now, to kind of kick things off, I'd just like to give both of you guys the floor. Introduce yourself, tell us what you do.
Thanks, Gabriel, man. Thank you very much for hosting us today. We really appreciate the opportunity. My name is Katlego Mabila. I'm a senior AWS account manager for Silicon Overdrive. My day-to-day job is to help organizations, it might be startup, it might be SMB, it might be a public sector, to understand how they can leverage cloud services of AWS. It might be through migration, might be through modernization, cost optimization, security features, and then most importantly, how to get credits and funding within the AWS, because not everything that you do with AWS, you need to pop your cash out of it. There is funding opportunities that are available within AWS that help startups and other organizations to leverage it and survive the pricing and other tremendous issues that you might be finding on the cloud services. So that's just me in a nutshell, and then I'll give it over to my colleague here.
Thank you so much. Thank you once again for availing this platform for us to be able to exhibit and show what we do and how we assist startup in the ecosystem. My name is Chuka Ezenwalie Anthony, originally from Nigeria, but I reside here in South Africa, Cape Town to be precise. My work in Silicon Overdrive, the breadth and depth is quite encompassing, so I'll give you a synoptic view of what I do. I practically assist startups. I've assisted startups, over 1,000 startups during my time in Silicon Overdrive. I'm still doing so at the moment. My day-to-day job is to facilitate some sort of relationship with other ecosystem builders to make sure that our reach sort of gets to all their portfolio. And we do, as a business, we help integrating solutions to cloud, just like as Katlego alluded earlier. And that includes giving them access to funding, and not just giving them access to funding and leaving it there, but actually sort of enabling them and teaching them how to maximize this funding to make sure that they get their project over the line. We are in the era of build fast, make your mistakes. There are a lot of resource for you now, so you don't have any reason not to build, okay? So we're making sure that we're taking away those excuses of, oh man, I can't do this because I can't pay for this. We're telling you, you know what? We can give you those credits so that you can build fast, scale fast, make that mistake, and we get to rectify it. That's on a nutshell.
So you spoke about all these things you guys do. And with Africa's entrepreneurship landscape being so dynamic, what's one of the unique advantages that you guys offer to startups that if they come into your system, they can get this valuable thing that they wouldn't get in-house?
I mean, one of the greatest advantages that people or the businesses around here have in terms of working with us is the ability to access those perks that are not readily available to the public. It's not an information that you get by just getting to Google and Googling it, right? So working with partners like us, we help you do the excavation. We point you to we're like a compass that points you to that gold mine, And we don't just point you, we help to mine it for you as well. So I think that is the advantage. More or less, you see that working with us, and the most benefits they get from it is not just the credit, but access to, real trending resources and technical know-how, more or less, if I'm to put it that way.
And we're speaking about this credit, making it easier for startups to not worry about funding and whatnot. Can you run us through how that whole credit situation works? And how do founders kind of get access to this credit?
Great. So the credits, there are different perks to the credits within AWS, right? So we have what we call the Activate Program, which allows businesses to access credit or startups to access credit from as little as $1,000 up to $100,000. And this is very, very easy to access. That is what we do for startups. We help you with the admin. We help you with the logistics. All you do is to comply with the steps. And one of the steps is make sure that your company is registered and you have a domain email as well that is synonymous, that aligns with your company registration name as well. Once you have that, ping us, or WhatsApp us or email us, and then we'll send you an information document. That information document is practically to help you onboard you in AWS, just to make sure that you're placed under the segment of startups. Because just to give you a sort of overview, there are different segments within AWS. You have the startup sector, you have the SMBs, you have the public sector. And you can only basically utilize or maximize this Activate credit if you're a startup. Now, the $1 million question is, who is a startup? If your business is still within 10 years, then you qualify as a startup. Okay? So when you complete that information document, we'll make sure you mapped a startup, and then we can then assist you with assessing that credit from the 1,000 to 5,000. And you know what? A lot of startups do assess the bigger credit, but then they don't extend their runway. But when they come through us and they work with us, what then happens is they maximize and extend their runway, which is one of the benefits of working with us. At the end of the day, they don't pay for like 2, 3, 4 years if they actually follow the instructions, as the case may be. Katlego, I think I'm on the right track. Yeah. What do you say?
No, you are on the right track. So remember, the most important part of giving startups credit is to offload other responsibilities that they can be able to afford while they're starting the business. Because, cash flow within a startup is very tight. And then AWS have seen the importance of how to help them to manage some of their accounts on cloud and to leverage cloud to bring the best value out of them and then be able to generate revenue. So my colleague here, Chuka, has just mentioned something that from 0 to less than 10 years, which is true. But there is one thing that we avoid. After the credit, then what happens? That's the question that we always miss when we go to conferences and so forth, explaining to startups how the investors need to partake in. And then remember, before 2022, the investing portfolio of startups was very big. But after 2022, investment changes. The landscape changes automatically. So that is when we need to advise startups of being ready journey after the credit has been out of helping health. Because if I'm helping you in a format of believing that in a certain particular time, you'll be ready to stand on yourself and be able to generate revenue. And then you find that most startups, they have great ideas, but they are not ready to take off. That is why they find themselves in moving in different directions. You'll find yourself 3 years you are in AWS. After 3 years, you apply credit in Microsoft and then things like that. Because they haven't mastered being a ready journey after exhausting all the credits and the funding they've received to be able to function correctly. And then that is where Silicon Overdrive it comes in. We give you guidelines on how to leverage AWS, how to maintain yourself within AWS, how to manage and get other opportunities in terms of accelerators. We connect you with accelerators to be able to receive other credits that can make you to manage your AWS account. But the tricky part is startups, they get credit, they get stuck on how to manage themselves within the credit. And then you find that after that, the credit expires because you are not active on doing what you've applied it for.
These startups that you guys get into these programs, what type of startups are you looking at? I feel like the startup scene is very broad. There's fintech, there's deep tech, agro. What are the specific startups that you guys take in within this program?
Okay. I would like to say that we are very sector agnostic. We're very, very universal in terms of, who we take in. So be it fintech, be it agrotech, be it health tech, be it any tech, be it whatever tech, it's allowed. So for us,
teletech, whatever you can bring on table.
Yes. So for us, it's a technical. So for us, they are a technical startup. I feel like there's always a need to align because the moment you involve tech, that's what the platform is all about. That's what AWS is there for you. And that's why we as partners are there to help, because we remember we're IT managed service providers, and then we are premier partners of AWS. So once it's a tech company, it's a tech startup, then there's definitely a need for us either to integrate them to cloud or help them. Say, for instance, they're doing deep tech, maybe leveraging things like Gen AI, more or less. I mean, our expertise comes into place, not just to help them onboard in AWS, but basically to help them align their services with the AI services that are within AWS. We're looking at things like SageMaker, Bedrock, and all whatnot. But then we also help them assess. Now, for different types of workload, there are different credit perks that we now call that we call it project funding, basically. So for instance, like AI, there's $300,000 that is available. There are prerequisites to it. Those are, I would like to call them exception credits, But yeah, we'll get to the nitty-gritties eventually. But it doesn't matter. We're sector agnostic.
And you touched on AI and these different programs you guys run. And I think generally people sometimes have this fear of like, oh, there's so much happening within AI. Where do we start off? And what's that actionable thing that you would give to funders where they're trying to come into AWS? What's the package that you would like them to start with and eventually move them further on during their journey?
Thank you for that. AI is the order of the day. Everybody speaks about AI. In fact, if you are building today and you are not incorporating AI, I'm just asking myself, maybe something is wrong somewhere. Because, there's been this paradigm shift. AI is like the messenger that is now coming to deliver the word. This is where we are going. Jump into the ship and follow now, like now. And if people are not jumping that ship now and beginning to incorporate AI, they will be left behind. Now, where we come in as partners is there are so many services you can use to start your journey in the AI sector. But the question is, do you have the resources, or do you have the technical know-how to commence this journey? So what we've sort of seen so far when people come and say, what we want to do, we want to build this, we want to build that. We don't just jump in and take the work. We say, hold up, we need to understand what is business objective, because you cannot be wanting to run an AI product without having the resource in-house to manage it and scale it eventually, because the resource is very expensive. If we are to help you and keep helping you, you'll be bankrupt before you know it, except you have big pockets. But we're talking about startups here. We're talking about people that are trying to get their dream off the ground and fly. We're talking about they are still learning how to spread their feathers, their wings, and start flying. So the question is, the very straight answer is, there are sandboxes there for you that AWS has provided, that you can go in and try your services and try things out free of cost, at no cost to you. But then if you want to build a product around this, there are programs like POC, proof of concept. This is where we come in and look at, okay, what have you built? What is your objective leveraging AI? And then we look at what then are the services in AWS that we can basically put together to help you get to those objectives. And that is where we run that POC. Now that POC will be able to help us understand if your product will work seamlessly with the AI services that exist within AWS. There's a lot of them. There's recognition. There are plenty of it. Whether you want to translate languages, you want to recognize, you want to do, there's services there. But then if you have the technical know-how now to fine-tune your own or to train your own large language model, there's credit for you. There's $300,000 that is available. The prerequisite is that you must show us that you are able to train, or you're training a model, that you're definitely going to train a model, right? And mostly it's not for the very early stage startup. These are for startups that have already, they've made the first step or even the second step. They're about their growth and scale stage startups, right? Now, the credit is available. That's number one. Then there is what we call Amazon SageMaker, which is basically where you can go in and train your own model, fine tune it as much as you want, train your LLM to do what you want at your own, giving it your own metrics, basically. So I think this is where we're coming. We help you bring the projects to life by finding programs that will support, funding programs that will support the project, and also helping you in terms of making sure that the service integrates with your solution seamlessly. Katlego, I'm not sure if I touched everything. What do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, no, we touch everything, and then this is one thing that we also need to allude to all the entrepreneurs that are looking into their businesses as a small organization that they want to grow. Remember, the African climate itself is very different from the US market.
Yeah.
It has this vibe, that a culture that accepts failure in terms of a business. And then because they have nice it's a nice to have thing and a vitamin for people that want to be in business. And then what is very interesting part about it is that those people, the US government has brought investment in that. We have a less centralized environment and then challenges and opportunities within Africa, where instances, geopolitical inconsistencies also makes difficult for some of promising startups to thrive. I'm going to give you an example. Imagine if you have a startup in DRC. The tensions that are happening now, there won't be much of investors that are willing to take the risk. That's another geopolitical issue. And then one thing, because Africa, it regards as a risk investment behavior, even though we have shown that we are growing in terms of technology, the tension between Russia and Ukraine has made a lot of changes towards African investment opportunity for startups. It's even very difficult for now for startups. Chuka can allude to that to me. For startups that go to seminars to look for investors, and then they come with nothing. Because of the third world war looming that we don't know.
Yeah.
Most of the startup, there is one I'm not sure it was in Nigeria or Kenya called Dave Dash. That's a very promising startup. It's closed. So you look into those dynamics and then also recession that is also come and tasting. You find that investors, they do have money, but with those unstable economic climate, startups finding it difficult to sustain themselves, even though we have right features, right elements within the AWS as a premier partner to help them. Because after helping you to position yourself, you need an investor that can say, okay, I have this that can help you to grow, and then this is what I'm expecting from you.
Yeah.
Based on the climate change, and then based off our economy that is not stable, even in South Africa, the economy that is not stable, our government that doesn't have a direction, it will be lucky if we're going to say 30 startups in South Africa reach their maturity in 5 years' time. And then every year, out of 100 startups, it will be 5, 7 that survive, employ 0 to 20 people.
And with that, this funding issue that we currently have, how can founders during the early stages of their startup find other revenues of funding their company?
I think, this topic has been generally touched a lot, even for every sort of startup or business gathering. And I think the first thing everybody says is traditional funding, whereby you look at your family members, friends, and and acquaintances. The truth of the matter is there's nothing like abracadabra in this situation. Money must definitely come from somebody. So I will still say it again. Traditional funding comes into play. Secondly is we need to start looking at how do we build and scale in a lean way so that we don't actually, our burn rate is a bit less, so that what we need from people or the assistance we need will be a lot more smaller. But then you look at compliance here as well. Those are not something cheap. So I think the best way around it is, or the first and foremost thing is there should be a structural change in Africa as a whole first, and that will possibly start positioning, startups in a better way, in the sense that we struggle with compliance in Africa, and there's nothing like sandboxes that can even allow you to you start your business and then eventually slowly, get those compliance in place. So aside the compliance, a part of it, I think the other way is what AWS is basically doing at this moment. So you see, you can tap into non-dilutive funding streams like AWS credits, right? Government grants, innovation vouchers, and form strategic partnership. Partnership is very important. I'm also a founder in it. And one of the things I do is, what do I need and how do I get it? And sometimes I don't have the cash to do it. So I form partnership. To form partnership with people that can help you solve that problem, that can extend your runway by giving away just bits of share. You can't eat it all. Africa must actually be open-minded in terms of shares, or your equity is not only for you. Eventually, you need to spread your tentacles a little bit. You need to share. Sharing is caring, they say. But in a business perspective, something must be given. And that is, in partnership, has always been, what am I going to gain from this partnership? So I think the best way is traditional funding, number one. Secondly, looking at maximizing these funding resources that are around you. For instance, for the technical startup, these non-dilutive funding streams like the AWS credits, which is a lot already. We're looking at $1,000 to $100,000 in Activate credit that a startup can definitely tap into. That allows you to basically build out your solution in AWS, scale, and it doesn't stop there. You still have partners like us that will come in and do things like cost optimization, manage your risk, how make sure that your environment is highly scalable, highly available. And that is another way to get funding. People look at it but that is funding. I mean, there are companies paying $40,000 in cloud usage. It is imperative. It's an integral part of your business. You cannot shy away from it. So that is already funding that is put on a platter for you, right? And then the next part is strategic relationship, strategic partnership. That is, we should get familiarize ourselves in how to strategically partner with other businesses, with people to get to our objective as startups, and especially in Africa. The earlier we start doing that, the better. But like I said, there should be a structural innovation because the way Africa is, it's a very difficult landscape to do business.
Chuka, you've touched a very interesting topic, but there is something that I want us to, as an African continent, we must make sure that we move away from this story of charity as the future of African venture capital hinging into demonstrating that we shall return, because this kind of approach, according to me, it will help us increases African share of global venture capital. And then moving beyond the impact of the narrative to showcase that for our continent's potential profit. And then one thing that as an African continent we are failing to do, we must make sure that the investing community must also hold funders accountable and then also prioritize governance to build a resilient ecosystem. Because we have great startups, but our government hasn't built any good ecosystem for our startups to survive. And then also some of our funders, they just come and invest in the idea, but they are not giving you a guideline of measurements for you also to succeed. So those kind of things, our local capital participation, it needs to be there. We mustn't only look into Europe coming to invest in us in startups. Chuka, you go to the likes of African Arena startups, you go to Tanzania, you go to Kenya and so forth. And then how many people come from Africa to invest in Africa? There are very few. And then we need our African government to build a resilient ecosystem that can be able to help startups to grow. Because now, Mr. Piri, I just want to make something and an example. We have big giants like Microsoft, Able, and so forth that they've done layoff of people into their organizations. And then if an American capital organization is laying off people, how many people are going to invest in African startups? Because automatically it brings a panic attack to investors. But if we have our African government that has built ecosystem resilience to help startups to grow. In the township, if you are in South Africa, you have Soweto. Soweto has generated 80 million a year for townships transaction. But there is no an ecosystem that can help trace that 80 million. We talk about it on podcast. We talk about it on TV and on shows. But have we built a resilient ecosystem to help those township startups to grow out of township while they're taking care of township? It's not only in South Africa. You go to Kenya, to Nairobi, there is good startups there. You go to Nigeria, I've met quite a number of startups that they are potentially good to grow. But because we are lacking within the government side of helping our own babies to grow, we'll find it difficult for them to climb and get investors from our own country. And then there'll come somebody from Singapore believing in Chuka idea and buy into it. And then I'm telling you, after investing in Chuka's idea, in 3 years' time, he's going to buy Chuka out. And then that startup is no longer existing in Africa. It's going to go to Singapore or it's going to go to UK because it's an idea that Chuka was managing but doesn't have money for it.
Yeah, that's true. And how do we go about building robust communities with looking at the local communities that are doing great things, that are not being given the right resources? How do we build that ecosystem? Like, how do we go to places like Nyanga and see what's happening there and build on those communities to be part of the global conversation, or that like the startups happening here, money is being generated. Let's make this a regulated infrastructure as well. How do we go about structuring that part of the startup scene within Africa?
Let the government participate in the You know what's unique about Africa? It's because we are the only country, the only continent, and then youth are the investment of any country or any continent. So if we have youth, it means that we have future. So then the future need to be addressed or be taken care of by making sure that our leadership structures of any country, they need to refrain from being greed and invest in their own people. Because I don't think that American company, or I don't think that America is better than South Africa. I don't think that America is better than Kenya and Nigeria. But because we have leaders that are greed, they're becoming better because they invest in their people. We are not investing. We have artificial place called Dubai, artificial place. That is the best. But how did it become the best? Because they invested in their people. Us in Africa, we need leaders that can invest in their people, which is our own economical concept. We need that, especially from local government. You know, we have, I'm going to give you an example. In Cape Town, now you guys are in Cape Town. Have you went to any community where there is a local talent show or local ideas of best tech township? It's very rare, very rare. Here in Gauteng, they do happen. But after those small tech organizations from high school, keep tertiary, what happens? Government hasn't given them direction in terms of how they invest in them to build robust, resilient growth in terms of that. Because remember, in order for a startup to grow, it needs financial understanding, how to manage their finances. You go to China, we have good startups. They have financial education style. They teaches you on how to manage business. Why can't we do that? Because all the countries that I'm talking, they come and get resources from Africa. But Africa is the poor in terms of helping their own businesses to grow. Now, Chuka is going to need somebody from UK, Ireland, USA, Canada to invest in his idea. While we have our own resources that we can invest into to him. So that's what I'm saying, that we need our leadership in high places changing the mindset of greediness, so that they can distribute the wealth fairly to all the organization. Because you'll go to government, they'll say that small and enterprises department, it has opportunities. But why don't we have startups there? Honestly speaking, the millions that are there, they say they help startups. But I haven't seen any startup that has employed great people out of South Africa. You go to Namibia, you find great startups that they are thriving because their leadership has invested and believed in them. Go to Burkina Faso, the current president has shifted in his tenure of being there in 24 months, has shifted so much, creating opportunities for the people to grow their businesses. So that's what we're talking about. So that's what our African leaders need to look into. That's just my thinking. Chuka, what do you say?
I totally concur with you. I mean, this topic is something that we will continue to deliberate in. As far as Africa is concerned, the issue of our government changing is, I don't know. Sorry to say, I would say it's synthesis in phantasmagoria. It's a utopia, a utopia sort of venture, because I don't see our leaders changing anytime. But I think we as individuals should pivot and change our mindsets, to becoming self-sufficient and not always believing that our help is outside there. Our help is actually inside here. It's inside Africa. And I think if we collectively as individuals say enough is enough, we demand change. Change is propagated by people, and the government represents the people. Until we wake up, for now, it's just a few people that are awake. The vast majority of people are sleeping. Until we wake up to all this dilemma, it's not going to change. You have to start with a lot of things, like I said, complete restructuring. This bordered system. Look at Europe. With a Shanghai visa, you can travel the whole of Europe. What it translates into business is you don't need to meet different, not just leaders, laws and regulation for every other European country you go in. So scaling your business is quite easy. But come to Africa, just from here to Zimbabwe, from here to Zambia, different regulation, from here to Namibia. It's like for every single country you get into Africa, you need to sort of look at the business model and pivot, realign yourself again because of all this, the border, the regulation. So like I said, it's not the government anymore because the government is not going to change anytime soon. It's us waking up and saying enough is enough. And it's until we do that, the government will keep doing what they're doing. But this topic is too big for us to It requires us, to energize.
Yeah, you can spend the whole day trying to dissect and figuring out how to solve it all. And since we're talking with this resilience of the South African and African startup scene, what's some of the underutilized digital marketing tools within AWS service that can kind of give startups that advantage at the early stage?
There is quite a lot of things on AWS, but the tricky part is as the startups understand their journey, because that's one thing that we need to discuss. AWS, I believe that Chuka will concur with me here. AWS has over 260 something services, and then there is only few that are being utilized. But as a startups, you want to be on cloud, and then you want to utilize cloud. What reasons do you have to be on cloud? And then what you want to achieve being on cloud? You want to scale quickly? You want to be reachable easily by everyone around the world? Or you just want your service to be available? Because that's one thing, some of the things that startups miss when they speak of availability. So you find that your product is ready, but it is not going to scale. So you can build an e-commerce platform, WordPress, light sales. You can do quite a number of things, but does the business that you're going to operate can be sustainable within the cloud space? Because it's not about the service that we're going to give it to you. There is a lot of services. You can have storage, S3 bucket as a storage for images, storage for data, and storage for quite a number of services. But does your organization, your startup needs to be on cloud, or it needs to be on a small server that you can put in your house and then you can purge it before you scale? Because that's where the potential comes in. And then now when I'm going to say, you guys are going to miss on 1,000 credits, 5,000 credits, 25,000, then I'm giving you things that they are there. But after you've received them, and then we find startups that they can utilize them. And then Chuka will agree. They will have 25,000 credit, and then they only use $500. A credit expire. And then you don't have money to manage the account again. You understand what I'm trying to say? So in that sequence, it's very imperative for startups to understand their journey. Even if they're early startups, is their journey matured to be sustained on cloud and AWS? And then if it's matured, we as AWS partner will help you to walk through the journey. And then even if it's not matured, we're going to advise you. We've met those. We're going to advise you that because you're not in a live environment, these are the steps that you need to do to reach here. When you are in a live environment, please reach to us. We're going to help you to apply for migration, to apply for credit, to sustain, and how to open an account within the AWS. But we need you to understand the basics of AWS. Because then, if you don't understand the basic of cloud, EC2 instances, it'll make you poor. You'll leave it running, and then you patch a lot of security and other features that you don't need. That is why we have what we call skill transfer. I think that's one of the best value we have done. I don't think there is an organization that has worked with Silicon Overdrive and then they'll say that we haven't transferred a skill. Because each and every step we take with them, we show them how. Chuka, you can add there.
Awesome. So I think just to properly buttress what you just asked, Katlego has alluded that there are a lot of services in AWS. In terms of digital marketing, there's quite a couple of services that startups do use. And I'll just enumerate maybe 1, 2, 3 of them and then give you why wouldn't they use it. I mean, it's important. Like we're looking at things like Amazon Pinpoint, right? It's basically what you use for customer engagement at scale, basically. It's sort of a mini channel sort of marketing tool to engage customers via things like email, SMS, push notifications, and voice campaigns as well. Now, the question is, why won't they use it? Or why use it, basically? Number one, you know that the model of AWS is you pay for what you use. And that is where we are as a business as well to help startups. So we make sure that you are right-sizing these resources and that you're provisioning the resources that you need. So we come in and look at business. What does business actually need? For instance, let's look at a food delivery startup. If they use Pinpoint, they'll be sending geo-targeted SMS for promos during lunch hours to drive local orders. So this is what this Amazon Pinpoint can basically do for you. Then we also have things like Amazon SE, which is very cost effective. It's also high volume marketing emailing. It's you email bulk SMS to customers. It's super cheap. So literally fractions of a cent or small. That is what you pay to use this kind of service anyway. So you get great deliverability more or less as well. And I say come back to what I say again. You pay for what you use, and it supports custom domains and authenticating to boost what we call credibility. AWS is all about credibility. You know what I mean? AWS holds most of the unicorns in the world. And one of those unicorns is what I say, Netflix, right? And you know what Netflix uses for their marketing? They use what we call AI-powered recommendations, Amazon personalized. If Netflix is using it, basically, if you click on Netflix, you watch one movie. For instance, if you say cat is a dog, I don't mean cat is a dog, by the way. What you get is a recommendation that is synonymous to what you've already clicked. And what are they using for that? It's what we call a machine learning service that allows you to build a personalized content and product recommendation engine with minimal AI experience. Basically, you don't even need experience to use this Amazon personalized. It's already a service that you can basically spin off at a click, number one. And why do you use this? It increases engagement. We're living in a world where people's choice is different. As the world evolves, the more there are varieties of choice. I don't even want to go there. The choices are becoming too much. I can't even keep track anymore. So you can it can be applied to emails. It can be applied to web. It can be applied in an in-app experience as well. And it is completely serverless. It's not heavy. So there's no such thing as heavy lifting, right? On setup. No. It's very easy. And example of people that will be needing it is media companies like Netflix has one, and any other company that, that has to curate article feeds based on readers' preferences or, shoppers' preferences, like things like e-commerce websites, right? Like it will boost the experience of people, in terms of using your platform, because there's nothing as exciting as you want to get A, but then you get to A, you're like, wow, I didn't know there's more of this that I can get. So you see, these are a few of those services, but just so you know, there's over 200 services, just like Katlego has mentioned, and there's no way I'll be able to dish out all of them. That is where we come in as partners. You just come in, you have to understand what business objective you need to attain. And then when you knock on our doors, we'll then help you bring those objectives to life by curating the services that will practically help you get that project over the line, such as most of the services that I've basically mentioned. But it's case by case, because what is needful for A might not be needful for B. It might be a different services. So an understanding of where business is headed for, where business is right now, and what business needs to get out is very crucial. Once there's that understanding, we as Silicon Overdrive, we are conveyors, right? We are connectors. We are implementers. We help you implement that. We'll help you get to that very milestone you need to reach by bringing those services together. Not just that, looking for funding programs that will help you bring those services to life. Not just that. And even after you start running already, we still come in and look at your environment, make sure it's set up to best practice to avoid security breach, to avoid unnecessary incidents that might sort of hamper your service as a company or as a business. So that's what we do. And those are most services. So if you want to know more, it's very easy. Just come to Silicon Overdrive and we'll help you get those things over the line.
I was just about to ask you, how do people get in touch with you guys? So as we get to the end of our conversation, there's two questions that I generally love to ask people. And since both of you guys are founders and you've started companies as well, what's that piece of advice that you would have loved that your younger self would have known?
Hey, it's very easy, man. I think one of the biggest problem in life is fear. I mean, we talk about fear. I'm a Christian. I don't want to bring religion into this topic, but there's a lot of fear, not fear in the Bible. And it brings me to one thing practically. If I could turn back the hands of time, which is still fine, I can't do that magic, except somebody can give me that magical power. I'm getting older. I'm still a young man. I will tell my young self, go for it. Do it. If you fail, it's fine. Because every failure basically in life is a postponement of victory, quote and unquote, right? But not just that, you're learning many ways of not to do the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. So we are so scared of failing that we don't even try. And then we get to the age of 40 and then we want to start, you want to become an entrepreneur. You want to become a founder at age 40 and you start learning the lesson you could have learned when you were in your 20s. And who said you might even fail? You might end up succeeding. like I said, is a postponement of victory. Success is basically, success is not as broad as people make it look. Success is, those granular steps you take. You might run now 100 meter and you fail, but that doesn't make you a failure because you succeed in 200 meter. Success is case by case. You might have failed in this business or venture, but you might succeed in this other one. So the bottom line is I'll tell my younger self to be daring enough,
Okay.
go for it.
For me, what I could have done better, one of the things is that Chuka has just mentioned is fear. But one of the most things that I also realized is sharing my imagination with wrong people, because they've planted a seed of failure in so many opportunities that I've created. So one thing I would have told my younger self was that don't share your vision with people that don't see a value in it. Because through the conversation, you can see that Chuka is not going to say anything good about what I want. And then don't say it to them. And then keep quiet and work on yourself. And then if you want to go fast, there is an African proverb that if you want to go fast, alone. But if you want to go far, go with people. But going with people, when you are at school, you need to go to your lectures, to your teachers to understand the subject matter that they're teaching. But we don't utilize that. We don't go to somebody who has a knowledge of a certain thing that you have access to. You go to your friend that doesn't even have a knowledge of what you want to achieve. And then they will tear you apart. They will tell you. I remember one day when I was telling one of my teacher that, I'll be one of the few guys where we come from to be on TV. The same way that Steve Harvey said. And then he said, Katlego, where you come from? It's a small village. And then I remember when I was in TV on a show that was happening called The Big Debate in 2007, 2008 on ETV. I used to call him that, hey, go and see me. I'm part of the show there. Mm-hmm. Because it's those kind of things where people discourages you to reach your full potential. You need to be, myself, now I needed to reframe of telling my imaginations to people. And then that's what I've told myself. I don't tell people my imagination because they'll discourage me. I work on it, I fail. Then I sit down. Then I said, what have I learned? Or I learned that I need to keep on trying. Then I wake up tomorrow. I try again. But not with the same style, but with a different style. We have a lot of information. That's what Chuka said. We have a lot of information, but we are thriving. We are in need of direction. We are sinking in a lot of information, but we don't have direction. That's why a lot of things are failing, because there is no direction, but there is information. And then that is where investors comes in. Such should seize the opportunity to contribute to Africa's tech ecosystem, recognizing the immense potential growth and the impact that Africa will bring to the world. And then the journey is just unfortunate business doesn't require that, but the journey required patience and long-term perspective, because the rewards are substantial for those who dare invest in Africa's future. This is the business environment talking about. No one is patient. And then that's my remarks of closing, that can the investors please seize the opportunity to invest in African continent, because it's going to grow. The AI is gonna boom in Africa. We're going to speak of the likes of Ghana, the likes of Kenya, the likes of Nigeria, the likes of Egypt, Morocco. The startups there, they're making changes. Let the investors that are not aware to go and Google those countries in Africa and check where they can invest. There is no growth in big organization I'm just going to say in the UK, in the Europe, because they've reached maturity in terms of bringing great ideas. But come to Africa, we haven't reached any level yet. So if you can pick up with African startups, when they grow, they will compete with data analytics in dimension data, with KPMG, with the likes, because they've been given a platform in their African culture to bring the best of their ability. So that's me in the closing remarks. And then how do you reach us? Our information, my email address is katlego.mabila@overdrive.co.za. My number is 078-295-6495 for business purposes. And then also you can reach us on our website also, filling in the information, or on our landline of the office. and then we'll be able to help, because we have quite a number of departments that can be able to utilize and help with different types of information. But today it was all about startups. From me to you guys, I thank you. And then great opportunity indeed. Over to you, Chuka.
Yes, I always say if you need credit, come to me. If you have problems, come to me. I'm your free resource anytime, any point, any day. Not midnight, by the way. Ish. Yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Chuka Ezenwalie. You can actually pick me up very easily. I'm that fine young man holding a mic, and then I always have something to say. Cool. And my email address is chuka@overdrive.co.za. I think we'll project this in the screen for you to be able to link up. But needless to say, I'll be expecting your call. I'll be expecting your reach out. Like I said, I'm your free resource. Why not use me?
And that is all from us. And check us on the next episode of From Garage to Growth.